Polar vortex. Now, it sounds dramatic, certainly sounds very cold. These are the latest pictures from the northern plains in the US. Now, snow's causing absolute chaos over there. But what is this polar vortex? What does it actually mean to you and me, and where is it found? Well, let's address first of all what the polar vortex is. It's normally recognized as a huge chunk of atmosphere, frigid atmosphere, rotating around 30 kilometers above our head in the stratosphere. It spins because our planet spins, and it's called the polar vortex because it sits over the polar region. It's as simple as that. Now, quite often what happens with this polar vortex, the way it kind of spins, is reflected a little bit lower down in the atmosphere. Now, the polar vortex tends to work in harmony with our well-known friend, the jet stream. And the jet stream often meanders underneath the polar vortex. Occasionally, this meandering jet stream digs so far south, it actually breaks off and traps a blob of spinning cold polar air. You can think of it almost like like an egg yolk wobbling there on its own. And these smaller vortices of polar air can bring some really extremely cold weather. Now, occasionally the term polar vortex is used to describe these smaller circulations, but the main thing up there, it's way up there in the stratosphere, that's where it stays. Now, some of you have asked whether this cold air will actually reach Europe. The answer is no, because the Atlantic Ocean warms up any cold air coming from the US before it arrives, and Europe's coldest weather usually comes from the east, from Siberia. So that's it. That's all on this cold polar vortex.
Fuck drugs, PCP, cocaine, heroin. Okay, now guys, we're gonna do some real time, all right? So pay attention to me right here. First you get this, you get the needle there, put it in your big vein. I'll just jam it in, I don't pay attention to it. Okay, now my blood feels like it's a bubble bath, and you guys look like you're made out of cotton candy, and this guy's a hippo. Camera guy, you getting this?
Oye, ¿con quién tú hablas?
Who are you talking to?
The ionosphere, and what they say is it's not a problem, it's a short period of time, yet when you lift the ionosphere up, the lower atmosphere rushes in and fills that void, which changes localized weather patterns.
The Los Angeles Times on April 21st, you said that you told the Associated Press that the American government has created weather tampering techniques so that the New World Order will be able to starve millions of Americans and to control the rest. Could you explain what you were trying to say?
Well, what I was trying to say is exactly what I said. There is weather control techniques. We have a complete package on that, which I did not bring, but I certainly will see to it that it is brought in for the record. Number one, the entire patents on the equipment. Number two, Senator Claiborne Pell's complete statement and story of his own that not only does it exist, but that we even utilize it as far back as the Vietnam War. You might want to touch base with Senator.
Look at it. I want everybody to be in on the joke, man. You know what I mean? For years now, talk show hosts, people on television, people in sitcoms have been hired by the government to throw you off the track, to distract you, to make you laugh and stuff like that, make you happy and docile so you don't know what's really going on. You know, and they get out there in the woods in a circle naked and they decide these things, and you know, and you know, look at them trying to.
Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
No exercise in military readiness. 1 minute! But demonstrations of force like this have taken on a new urgency for the West. Here, beside the Carpathian Mountains in Romania, these soldiers are training for battle. Just a 7-hour drive from Ukraine, where Russian-backed separatists set off the worst confrontation between Moscow and the West since the end of the Cold War. Romanians and other Eastern Europeans who remember Russia's past aggressions are worried about the West's ability and willingness to stop an emboldened Russian President Vladimir Putin.
A new Cold War is a reality. Now we live in a new Cold War, but it's a danger for the real war.
See, think, and even react like a human.
In almost any warfare situation, you'd rather send machines out there to be destroyed rather than flesh and blood people. One of the real frontiers for robot development these days is in trying to create humanoid robots, ones that have a shape that is a lot more like the human body. You're sending a robot soldier into some sort of city, it needs to be able to walk through doorways, it needs to be able to climb stairs. It basically needs to have all the kinds of agility that you would associate with a human soldier, but of course, none of the actual flesh and blood vulnerabilities.
It's one of the visions being pursued by the Pentagon's Dream Department, DARPA. And many of DARPA's dreams are coming true.
DARPA absolutely has been looking into the feasibility of creating a humanoid robot actually for a long time now.
I said before, that doesn't mean it's just here in the U.S., it's also abroad. In fact, I would go as far to say that some of these robots have probably been used in experimental situations, and especially abroad where nobody can talk about it or tell, but a lot of these robots will be used for these situations, and I realize these are the end times. This is what's coming. If you think the NSA, DHS, U.S. Army is tough now, and seems heartless now, you wait until about 20 years from now, it'll be 10 times as bad. This technology made by Boston Dynamics and other entities have been purchased by Google. Google's involved in this. Yes, Google, the search engine, is involved in this, as you heard earlier. They've bought up about 18 different military robotic companies, that basically companies that make robots for the military and government op programs. So they have bought up a lot of these robots during the last few years, and Google's very much involved in the military, in robotics, and in they basically walk hand in hand with the U.S. government. So that's something you need to be aware of. Moving forward,
the worst thing that could happen to humanity and the worst mistake in history. He says that it'll be the biggest event in human history, but also could be the worst. And he's right, but his warning will, of course, go unignored by the big tech companies who are having an arms race to see who can be the first to build Lucifer, to usher in Satan into planet Earth. Google, Facebook, IBM, other big billion-dollar tech companies are, of course, in a race to develop their artificially intelligent singularity satanic system. And while the threat of artificial intelligence has been seen in science fiction for decades, it's only been more recently that serious scientists are starting to realize that we are on the verge of an utter disaster. Of course, the military is just planning on merging man and machine.
What's more, I want to thank the people of Brisbane who gave us such a hospitable reception. I think that you could see this for yourselves too. I realised there had been some attempts to raise the tension when I looked through the local press and other media outlets after arriving. In this particular case, reality and the virtual life in the media were very far apart. Our host, the Australian Prime Minister, as I already said, did create a very positive environment for working together. Yes, we do not share the same views on every issue, but the discussions were substantive, friendly and concrete.
Varyag, the destroyer Marshal Shaposhnikov, a tugboat and a supply tanker left Vladivostok on October 23rd. The fleet was believed to be in the Coral Sea south of Papua New Guinea on Wednesday evening. The warships could be approaching Brisbane by Saturday. In response, Australia deployed naval ships the HMAS Parramatta and HMAS Stuart to monitor the Russian fleet in the Coral Sea earlier this week. An Australian P-3 Orion surveillance aircraft was also sent to shadow the Russian warships. The Russian embassy reportedly said the warships were performing routine activities and had no intention of entering Australian waters unless by invitation.